Shalom, great men of Yahweh. We'll go ahead and open in prayer. Great Father Yahweh in heaven, this is your servant, Matithia Hawkins. I do come before you and complete you with the body of priests of the great house of Yahweh in these last days, being a seed of the witness, the great Khan Yeshua Abel Hawkins, and through our most honorable high priest, Yeshua Messiah. I do come gathered, Father Yahweh, with the men of your great house, Father Yahweh, as we join through the radio airwaves and the different internet streams. And we do come before you, Father Yahweh, thanking and praising you for the opportunity to be able to appear before you on your great Sabbath here at your house, Father Yahweh, to learn your righteous ways and to be able to continue to grasp hold of this golden oil that's being poured out in these last days, Father Yahweh, these righteous teachings, Father Yahweh, which will lead and guide and perfect us. We pray, Father Yahweh, as we do cover the words of the greatest teacher in the universe, the greatest teacher in the world. We do cover the words of the greatest teacher in the world, Pastor Israel Hawkins. We pray, Father, that you would help our minds to take hold of these teachings, that we'd be able to apply in our day-to-day living, Father Yahweh, the keeping of your laws, the diligent adherence and observance of keeping your laws, and also that we remember the prophecies which have been taught to us, and that we'd be able to continue to remain firm and faithful, being made in your image and your likeness. And we pray, Father Yahweh, that you would make us as you want us to be, for that's what we do desire to be perfect and righteous like you. Keep us humble and allow us to continue to serve our brothers diligently and willingly. We pray for healing and health for those who are sick or suffering. Pray for those being held in prisons in foreign countries for their zeal and strength and to endure unto the time of your great deliverance. We do pray all these things, a complete unity body of priests, being a seed of the witness, Yeshua Hawkins, through our most honorable high priest, Yeshua Messiah, we do pray. Hallelujah. Praise Yahweh. Praise Yahweh, man. You can be seated if you're standing. Shabbat Shalom, great men of Yahweh. We are going to be picking up here in the 20th Book of Yisrayl. This was the Book of Yisrayl entitled, It Is Written. And it is written in the 20th Book of Yisrayl in chapter 23, this sermon that Pastor gave on Abraham 11, which is the Roman calendar date of 8/1/2020. And he entitled this sermon, The Skies Are Pouring Out Righteousness from the Satellites Invented in This Generation. And in the first half of this sermon here, we're going to see, of course, this was in the midst of this increase of the coronavirus in 2020 and the world trying to cope with it. And Pastor was going through and showing where this virus started and who it affects, and showing its ability to harm people but not to kill them. And then Pastor started showing about where you get answers and guidance and knowledge only from his house. And then showing the shape of the world and how much disease and sickness we see in the world today. So we're going to pick up here on page 190 of the 20th Book of Yisrayl, or if you're following along in the Yisrayl Says, it's going to be chapter 23 on the Yisrayl Says program. And Pastor starts off the sermon, Shalom everyone, praise Yahweh. This is wonderful. They're beautiful, Yahweh. Please be seated. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. He says, everything is going exactly the way Yahweh said it would. That's something always to remember when we see things taking place and transpiring and different tests or trials, or we see things in the world. We got to remember that everything is going exactly the way Yahweh said it would. Yahweh had a plan for mankind. We see here as the sinners are reaching the end of their 6,000 years allotted to them. We see here, this change that's about to come, where the kingdoms of man are falling and Yahweh's kingdoms are going to be raised up and exalted. His great kingdom here, the great house of Yahweh, the tree of life. Everything is going exactly the way Yahweh said it would. I want to repeat. This virus, and I've got proof of it here from their own writings, but this virus, when the last person gets it, it will last 5 moons. The first thing people miss is that the virus has got to be poured out upon those who have the mark of the beast. Okay, so this is a sickness and a disease that is affecting those that have this mark of the beast, that have been practicing these sins, been led into these sins. And we're going to see here who those people are who have this mark. When the last person who has the mark of the beast Okay, this virus, when the last person gets the virus, 5 moons, it'll be gone, all of it. We have articles here that are now showing that they finally discovered what we said is true. This is a lingering illness. It's not going away, and they recognize this now. And then in verse 3 here, he's reading an article here that says U.S. breaks daily record for new coronavirus cases. And if you jump down to the end of that article, in the middle of verse 3, Pastor shows the coronavirus does not kill. It does not kill. It's the related illnesses that they're suffering from, and some die from the related illnesses. The hospitals look like a war zone. This is in Texas, where we are right now. So Pastor's showing here, what is written in the scriptures, showing, that it's these illnesses, these sickness that mankind has been breeding and mutating now for 6,000 years, ever since, as we're going to get into, ever since Satan deceived Eve, convinced her into sinning. These viruses have spread to now we're to the point to where, this coronavirus, it doesn't kill people, but it makes them to where the other illnesses in their body take hold of their body, as Pastor showed in previous sermons and some future sermons in this book, showing about how it absorbs your immune system. It takes away the body's ability to fight off the things that are lingering in the body. Because, as Yahweh showed in Genesis chapter 2, showing that, dying, you will die. That it's a process. And partaking of sin, it's not that you drop instantly. You drop down and die. People would learn, they would learn real quickly not to sin, right? If it was like an instant thing, like touching an electric fence, or putting salt in your coffee instead of sugar. If it was an instant result, then mankind wouldn't have the ability to prove themselves in choosing righteousness. But Yahweh made it to where it would be a process, where when sin was partaken of, then it would start a process in the body that would start breaking down the body and start killing the body. So instead of having a body that lives and thrives, and continues to live and thrive, the body would break down. And we see, from the time of Genesis, where we had people living almost 1,000 years, to now, someone's blessed to get 70 years, with the different things that have been brought down from one generation to the other, to the other, to the other, and so forth. Now in verse 4, and about the middle here of verse 4, he says, they kept announcing that it came from China, and I said, not so. It started in Italy. That's where it started. I remember in the book, The Keys of This Blood, Pastor told us to remember what Malachi Martin talked about, with those who wouldn't bow to Mary, they wouldn't bend a knee to Mary, they wouldn't pay this tribute to the Catholic Church, that they would be come against. And you remember it was the people of China, the Chinese, and the Muslims, those who follow the Islamic faith, that they would be made to look like they were causes of problems. And we've seen how the Islamic religion has been made to look horrible especially ever since September 11th, 2001, and so much forward. Now you can kind of start to see, as you read the news every day, you start to see China keeps coming up, that China's doing this and China's doing that. Well, they wanted to blame this virus on China, in so much that some people, if you listen to news articles, they'll call it the China virus, the Wuhan virus. They won't even call it the COVID or the coronavirus. They want to put a blame on these people instead of placing the blame on this system, this religion that is bringing forth this sickness and disease and misery upon mankind. That's the result of these plagues. But Pastor said, they kept announcing it came from China, and I said, not so. It started in Italy. That's where it started. Now they finally checked the records, and they got that straight. Italy, yes, the home of the Roman Empire. And this article he read here said 27% saw the virus arrive via Italy. Yes, Italy, the home of the Roman Empire, the ones who instituted giving the mark of the beast to the world by saying, let's change the Sabbath day. The seventh day is the Sabbath. It's not the first day of the week. There's no authority given in any of the scriptures that shows you are to rest on any other day than the seventh day. And this is important to remember in the fact of, as Pastor's shown before, about how the Catholic Church, years ago, they began a campaign of buying up, certain dictionaries and book publishing companies, because they wanted to own the information that went forth. They wanted to control it. If you remember, when Pastor and the priest worked on putting the Book of Yahweh together, they had to go back to some of these old authoritative books, because the newer dictionaries and the newer concordances had been changed by the Catholic Church. Well, they're doing the same thing today with media, where sometimes it's hard to get correct and accurate information, and just for a homework assignment, as it were, if you haven't, just go to Google. It's one of the larger search engines. It comes on most phones as a standard search engine, but you go to Google and you just type in the question, which day of the week is the seventh day of the week? And look what it comes up with, and see the power that this beast exercises over the world. They don't show the seventh day being what the world would call the Roman Saturday. They don't show that. No, they show it as their sun god worship, their Sunday, holy day that they've tried to convince all the world into following. But Yahweh's reserved this information, and this is something, the job of the two witnesses was to bring back Yahweh's glory and to show the importance of keeping the seventh day, the Sabbath day, Roman Saturday, to keep that day holy to Yahweh, or sacred to Yahweh, by appearing before Yahweh at his house, so you can learn the righteousness. But the Catholics, they'd show you to rest on any other day than the seventh day. In fact, and so they couldn't get many people to stop resting on the seventh day, so that now they're just trying to change, where if they were allowed to have, another, 20 years or possibly 10 years, they'd have it to where everyone thought the seventh day of the week is Roman Sunday. And we know that's not so. In fact, there's a curse if you do. Okay? There's a curse that if you rest on any other day than the seventh day. Okay? There's a curse from not resting on the seventh day. You don't receive that knowledge. You don't receive that renewing. You don't have that mark of Yahweh that's upon you. So he says here, Pastor says here in verse 5, in the middle of the verse, it shows a curse from Genesis to Revelation. Then the last 5 verses of Revelations 22, that's the last chapter, the last 5 verses, it says you're cursed if you try to change Yahweh's laws. Cursed. You're cursed by plagues. That's what plague means. It's a curse. And if you've never read the Sabbath, Every Question Answered, or which day is the Sabbath of the Old Testament, Pastor showed in there from articles like Bible readings from the home and different articles that were written, some in like the 1800s and the early 1900s, showing where Catholic cardinals would be questioned about changing the scriptures, and changing the worship of the Creator on the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week, and they admit to this change. They admit to the change, and they said, that the Pope had this authority from God, So they admit to this change, even though the Scripture says, cursed if you try to change Yahweh's law. You're cursed by these plagues, Pastor shows. That's what plague means. It's a curse. And that's why we see the curses upon the earth, because of the changing of what they did and taking away Yahweh's laws, and teaching their oral traditions, which make no sense. It gives, when you hear the teachings come forth from the 7 hills of Rome, it's so confusing, because it doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do to achieve life, peace, joy. The Pope, he'll say one thing here, and then he'll say something over there, and people don't know. They really don't even know. Even Catholics, they call themselves conservative Catholics or strict Catholics, who have been generations of Catholics. They even are questioning what's being brought forth from the 7 hills of Rome, because they see the twisting of things, whereas certain things were taught against, Homosexuality, for example, was always taught against, you know, in their words, you know, and then Pope Francis comes forth and he says, well, who am I to judge, you know, if two people want to make these own choices, who am I to judge, you know? And so you can see the forked tongue, you know, where the Catholic Church is putting forth this mixture, you know, this mixture of righteousness and evil, and it's confused the earth, you know. This is the result of the confusion in the earth. And praise Yahweh for the house of Yahweh and the ability to learn how to live a peaceful, joyful life, to learn Yahweh's laws, to be given this guide of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. You know, what things are healthy for the body and which things bring damage to the body. And these things are what is written in the Holy Scriptures. And this is what Pastor for 40, 50 years here in the wilderness has been teaching and bringing. You know, you go through all his writings, all his sermons, you listen to all his sermons. He's always been trying to show the importance of keeping these laws, that that's the only way for mankind to have a peaceful, joyful life. But you see here in verse 6, Pastor shows it was the Roman Catholics that were prophesied to change the Sabbath. And that's in Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25. And I wrote it back in 1976 in the book, The Mark of the Beast. He says, get the book, The Mark of the Beast. What they did, and you can read the book, The Mark of the Beast, volumes 1 and 2, on the Yisrael Says program also, if you don't have the physical copies, so you can call the office and get the copies. What they did and how they did it. Every bit of the history of it is in that book. You really need that book, The Mark of the Beast, you know, which is the first book Pastor put out that he wrote back in 1976, and it showed how this beastly system was going to rise up, you know, against righteousness to try and destroy the saints of Yahweh, you know, and this is what we see day by day. Now, continuing on here, we're going to skip over here to verse 11. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back here to verse 9. He says, you really need to acquaint yourselves with Revelation 16, at least verses 1 and 2. That's the first virus, the coronavirus, the first plague of the 7 plagues. You better get to thinking straight. What you're seeing is just the first one. Just the first plague. The first one hit the healthiest part of the nation. It hit them all. Everyone who has the mark of the beast is going to get this coronavirus. Everyone. In verse 10, the mark of the beast is Sunday. Sunday keeping instead of the Sabbath day, the 7th-day Sabbath. The Roman Catholic Church changed it and said, no, we want nothing in common with the rabble of the Jews. This is all a matter of history. Constantine, okay, remember what Constantine did in 325. It's a matter of history. We want nothing to do with the rabble of the Jews. So they changed it from the 7th-day Sabbath to the first day, Sunday, in honor of the sun god Baal. And they admit to these changes. You know, Pastor put those in the book, Sabbath Every Question Answered, and Which Day is the Sabbath of the Old Testament free booklet, showing how the Catholic Church admits to making these changes. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, read that with this in mind. The preachers all want to ignore it, but it tells you evil like the gods. The gods are evil. They are the adversaries of Yahweh, the Creator. So you can see why the Catholic Church wanted to change the worship. They wanted the worship to change, to give worship to in honor of the sun god Baal, because they wanted people to become evil like the gods. They are adversaries of Yahweh, the Creator, evil like the gods, Genesis 3:5. Read it over and over until you see what I'm talking about. Satan convinced Eve to sin, to practice evil like the gods. And the pastor goes on to show here that you can't break Yahweh's laws, you can't break his commandments, okay, and be righteous. You know, you can't practice fornication, adultery, sodomy, homosexuality, or bestiality and be acceptable. You know, Yahweh is not going to accept sinners into his kingdom, because his kingdom is a kingdom of peace, joy, and abundant living. Okay, it's not going to be the misery that we see on the earth today for mankind going their own way for almost 6,000 years. Yahweh's plan is to bring peace to the universe. Now we're going to skip over here to verse 17. And Pastor says, the whole world is deceived. Revelations 12:9. Not everyone has the mark of the beast. Some have refused it, and they buck against it. They're trying to kill them off. Okay, and he's showing how this beastly system is trying to get rid of those that aren't accepting this mark. You know, they're not following these pagan days the pagan holidays and the Sunday worship. They're not bending their knee to this religious system. They have this deep-rooted influence, or something that's been passed on to them, where they just have something that opposes them to this way, and the beastly system is trying to get rid of those people. Pastor shows you they're trying to kill them off, all those who don't have the mark of the beast. They say, let us be like the first beast, and they're trying to kill everybody else off who doesn't say that. The wars are going to come. The last 2 plagues are the 7 last plagues. And then in verse 22, he says, I've got a thing. Maybe I'll get to it. But if you look up the word plague in Webster's dictionary, it will give you a few of the well-known, like syphilis, gonorrhea, AIDS, and so forth. It'll give you about 5 of them. Then it will say, see disease. Well, diseases are plagues. If you look up the word disease, you'll see about a half a page of the diseases that the whole world is now suffering from, the whole world. There's at least a half a page. There's got to be over 100 of them on there, these diseases, because they don't just have one problem. They have all these different ailments, that have been bred and mutated and created year after year, ever since Eve allowed Satan to convince her that they could go the way of the gods and still have life, this deception. There's got to be over 100 of them on there. I didn't count them, but it's a half a page, one after another, one disease after another. That's the kind of sick world that we're living in right now. And just in closing here, in Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 12, Jeremiah 30 verse 12, it says, for this is what Yahweh says, your affliction is incurable, your wound is severe. And the side note right there, G1, it says, meaning that no man alone is able to find out a means to deliver himself, but that it must be the work of Yahweh. You have all these different people, they say, take this and you're going to have a healthy life and do this. Life only comes through the tree of life, this great house that Yahweh has built upon this rock, that will not be put into the grave. And that's where we absorb the knowledge to live and have a peaceful, joyful, abundant life by keeping Yahweh's laws as taught by the great Khan Yeshua Hawkins. And at this time, if you will all stand, I have the pleasure to turn it over to our next teacher, the great Khan Malachi Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh, man. Please be seated. We're going to continue from where the great priest left off in the 20th book of Yisrayl. He who rules as Yahweh ruler. It is written. And this is something, we have to put our trust in. We have to put our trust in that written word that was delivered to us. And if you look up that word delivered, it means handed down to. So we have to be very, we have to follow this teaching as it was handed over to us from the prophet, the apostles, Yahshua being the chief cornerstone, and through Yisrael Hawkins. So we got to continue just a rehearsal. We are on page 190, chapter 23, the skies are pouring out righteousness from the satellite invented in this generation. And this was given at Abraham 11, Romania 8, 1, 20. So we're going to pick up on page 192. We're going to pick up on page 192. From Well, 193. We pick up from 193. Let's look from verse 25. It said, in Yael, it was translated as people. Now, he's talking about what the priest was just mentioning there. It said, you will have to do a little searching, but it will show you that, no, it's not people. It's what they call the locusts in another place, down to verse 23. He said, over 10,000 new cases were reported in the states Wednesday. You know, he's still speaking about this coronavirus. That's in Florida. According to this health department, the state have now reported 389,868 cases and 5,632 deaths. Go down to say Italy earliest coronavirus strain did not arrive from China. And this is what the first priest had mentioned. This is what Pastor has said. It did not come from China. It came, you know, the first strain came from Italy. Verse 26. So COVID-19, Italy warned to be cautious after slight rise in cases. Authorities have reminded people in Italy to follow 3 basic health precautions as the number of infection rise slightly in Italy. Now, I wanted to pay very close attention because I want to mention something here, and if you don't pay very close attention, you might just miss the whole point. Pastor goes on to say in verse 28, he said, yes, you can take precaution, you might slow it down, but you are not gonna stop it. Listen what he said, and the first priest I've already covered. It's going to spread to every last person that have the mark of the beast. Now, I want us to keep that in mind. It's going to spread to every last person that have the mark of the beast. Now, let us look over to verse 32. He said, if I could just get people to believe that they can believe these prophecies. So you see, Pastor, he's showing us we have to put our trust in the prophecies of Yahweh. We have to put our trust in the prophecies that Yahweh have brought forth. It looked like this would be it because Yahweh foretold this. I brought it out in the book, The Mark of the Beast, and then a few months ago, Yahweh had me bring it again before it hit, before it struck. Just a few months later, it struck, just like Yahweh said it would. And you see, this is what the house of Yahweh place our trust in. We have to put our trust in Yahweh. Verse 33, he said, it doesn't kill. Yahweh tell you that it lasts 5 moons. Yahweh tell you that. No, how did he know all these things? How did he know this wouldn't kill? Think, listen what Pastor said. Think what magnificent knowledge this being have. Now think about this magnificent knowledge that Yahweh have. The being called Yahweh, that the world rejects. Now please keep that in mind. Now with that in mind, let us just look at, if you have a book of Yahweh, just look over to Matithia. Let's look at Matithia chapter 24. Because this is something, you know, it's very, very important, especially for us in these last days, the remnant. Now, let's look at Matithia 24. And as we know, this Matithia 24 was written for us. The time period that this last generation, the last house of Yahweh was established, it's written for us. Yahshua gave every single thing here. It is written for us. Let's look from verse 3. It said, now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, tell Yahweh people, this is what they're saying, tell us, tell Yahweh people, tell the saints, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? But what we have to pay very close attention to is the very first thing that Yahshua said. That is what I want us to really focus on. Look at the very first thing that Yahshua said. Yahshua answered and said to them, be on guard, so that no man deceive you. That's the key thing. Deception. That's the key thing I want us to really focus on. Let's look at verse 22. He said, and unless those days were shortened, there will no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake. Now, who is an elect? Who is an elect? An elect is one who won't be deceived. Why that person won't be deceived is because he put his trust in what is written. He put his trust in the word of Yahweh, the laws and the prophecies. That is what an elect is, and that is what we have to be. We have to be an elect by putting our trust in the written word, in the laws and in the prophecies of Yahweh. So the question is, okay, let us say, let me make sure I cover everything here first. Okay, let us continue reading from 23. He said, then if a man say to you, behold, here is the Messiah, or he is there, do not believe. And this is basic things that Yahshua, just little things that Yahshua is pointing out. And if this ever occur, as Yahshua pointed out, we won't fall for that. We won't fall for that. But if Yahshua were to say every single thing, what to look for, we would have a bigger book of Yahweh. We might have about 3 or 4 big book of Yahweh, because he cannot go into every intricate detail. But the key thing, he said, do not be deceived. Let no man deceive you. Right? So it goes on to say, therefore there will arise false prophet and false Messiah, and he said, if it was possible, they would deceive the very elect. Okay, this question. So let us say, so if something comes with 75% of the same characteristic of what we see are taking place, or what the first priests have covered. Let us say something comes with 75% with the same characteristic. What will you say? What are you going to say? What you're going to say? This person have the mark of the beast? That is what you're going to say? Or the only way that we are not going to be deceived, we have to put our total trust in Yahweh. That is the only way we're not going to be deceived. Because Pastor said when he go, Yahweh is going to judge us. What is going to judge us on? What was handed over to us? The teachings that was delivered to us, that is what we're going to be judged on. Right? Yahshua say, I go to prepare an office for us. Every time, we get tested, and if we're not following the tradition that was handed down to us by the apostles and the prophet and Yahshua and Israel Hawkins, we'll just be knocking ourselves further down from whatever office that we had. We'll just be dropping further and further down. Now, if you have that thought in mind, when I say that thought, I'm talking about saying someone have the mark of the beast, even the same characteristic is being shown, 75% of the same characteristic is being shown. And you said someone have the mark of the beast, you pick up the phone, you start calling, people, and saying, spreading a false report, gossip, right? You're not following the teaching. Are you following the teaching? Are you putting your trust in Yahweh, in the laws and the prophecy? No, you're not. And if anyone ever fall into that category, King David, in Psalm, King David was repentant. Let us turn there. Let us turn there. In Psalm where King David, this will be a great psalm, to look at, because King David, yes, he did some foolishness, but anytime he sinned, you know, and the priest pointed it out to him, he never went back that direction. Right? He never made that mistake again. Psalm 51, right, from verse 1. Listen what King David said. He said, have mercy. Now, instead of us, put me. Have mercy upon me, O Yahweh, according to your loving kindness, according to the abundance of your compassion. Blot out my transgression. If you made that mistake, that is what, you know, we're supposed to be repenting bitterly because you're not following the teaching that comes from the house of Yahweh. He said, blot out our transgression, or wash us thoroughly from our iniquity, and cleanse us from our sins. Let's look at 10 and 11. He said, create in me a clean heart, O Yahweh, and renew a righteous spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence. And this, if you don't follow the teaching, this is what's going to take place. Yahweh is going to cast us out from his presence. Right? We have a very important work. We have to finish this work. Right? We have to be very mindful. We have to put our trust in what was handed to us by Israel Hawkins. Right? Because Yeshua is guiding this work. And we know that Yahweh is in charge, in full control. Yeshua is guiding this work, and we have to follow that teaching. So we will not be deceived. Only the elect will not be deceived. Things will take place. Things are going to take place, and if we don't follow that teaching, or we don't put our trust in Yahweh, we'll be deceived. And we see how very simple it is to be deceived. It's very, very simple. Did I finish read it? In verse 12, it said, restore in us the joy of your salvation. That is Yeshua. Restore that joy that Yeshua is bringing to us, because we know exactly why Yeshua was bred in a particular way, and it's basically for us, to benefit us. Let us see if we can move forward, because, man, that time is moving fast. Turn back that clock. Can you turn back the clock? Okay, let's look over to verse 35. Let's just read the finishing part of verse 34. So Genesis 3:5 tells you what you are. You are evil like the gods. The evil is what have brought the 6,000 years built up of sin. For 6,000 years it have been building. The curse in the earth is getting worse. The curses in your body are gaining grounds against everything you do. Even right now, the related illnesses you have, you could have 100 in your body. The baby can be born with it. Why won't you want to change? Why will someone don't want to change when they're seeing what sin actually bringing? Right? And pastor goes on to say, you know, a child inherit these sickness and disease from 3 and 4 generation back. You know, the grandparents, the great grandparents and all is what was accumulated. Because why? As Yekeskia said, if the parents, if the son see the sins of the father and turn from it, that is where the buck stop. But they are not doing that. They are continue teaching the same tradition. That same tradition, what Cain taught, they keep on teaching that same tradition. And we see in this 6,000 years what is actually taking place. The earth is start vomiting out the inhabitants. The earth is trying to protect itself right now. Right? So all the diseases all the sin that have accumulated in that 6,000 years is coming up from the earth right now. Look at the North Pole. Everything is melting away. Why? It's because of the sin of mankind. Right? And this is what Pastor is showing us here. Right? The sin is coming up, and certain diseases that was isolated for a long period of time, where the stage of mankind immune system is so weak. When these diseases come up, Mankind's immune system can't withstand it. So we see the turmoil that the earth is really facing. We see the turmoil that mankind have brought. We see the turmoil that Satan have created to kill all mankind. Only the house of Yahweh have that promise. The house of Yahweh is the only group that is bringing light. As we saw in Genesis, the house of Yahweh is represented as the tree of life, or the tree that brings forth life. And the world don't know that. The world don't understand this. The house of Yahweh will restore every single thing, will bring forth life, peace, joy, and that abundant living to all of Yahweh creation. So this is something we have to look for. That is why we have to be very, very circumspect in everything that we do. Right? To be part of that family, to be part of that government that Yahweh is actually forming. You know, I was listening to one of Pastor's sermon. I believe it's in the series that Deception Increasing. And Pastor said, Yahweh have to prove us to see if we could get persuaded. And he said, once we qualify and we become a son of Yahweh, he said, we will go out into different areas of the galaxy. And he said, it will have certain beings that is there, will try to persuade us. Right? It will have certain beings that will try to persuade us. And this is the training that we are going through right now. Little things that we have to go through right now to prove our loyalty to Yahweh, that we won't turn from the teaching that was delivered to us. We have to prove it now. We have to hold fast to this teaching. Right? We have to prove ourselves right now. This is the final stage, and we can make it. We could make it into that office that Yahshua actually prepared for us. But we have to hold fast to the teaching. This is the key thing. We have to hold fast to the teaching that have been delivered to us through Israel Hawkins. We have to carry on this work. We have to bring in that everlasting righteousness. And we can do it. You know why? We have been trained by the greatest teacher in the world. That is why we could do it.